Again, welcome to Gardening with the Masters Online. Today we welcome Julie Valdez. Julie is a lifelong New Mexico resident, and she's the Water Use and Conservation Bureau Chief with the New Mexico Office of the State Engineer. She's a graduate of New Mexico Institute of Mining and Technology, and over the course of her career, she has administered water rights applications, she's provided technical support for hydrographic surveys, and she now manages the Water Conservation Outreach Program. And she also reviews and prepares technical reports for water development, water conservation plans, and irrigation water requirements. In her gardening life, she loves roses and vegetable gardening, and she helps with her family's fruit trees. She's also been spending time learning the art of canning from her mom. Together, they put up a lot of preserves, especially plum and apricot jellies, salsa, pickles, green beans, and corn. And she says there's nothing better than eating the produce of your garden in the dead of the winter. So today she's going to give us a lot of tips on maintaining a beautiful landscape in the midst of a drought. And she's going to share a bevy of resources and tools for wise use of water. And again, all these links will be available on our website after this. So without further ado, I'm going to give you Julie Valdez. Thank you, Julie.
Thanks for that great introduction, Meg. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone is having a great day. Before I jump into my presentation, I would like to take a minute to discuss how water is administered in New Mexico. The New Mexico Office of the State Engineer, generally speaking, has a mandate to manage the use of water. Water management in New Mexico is guided by the New Mexico Constitution, which states all unappropriated water belongs to the public and is subject to appropriation by law. The acquisition or continuation of a water right and where and how much water can be used is determined by how the water is put to beneficial use. Older water rights have priority over more recent water rights. In New Mexico, the more senior water right holders typically include Native Americans, acequias, and agricultural water users. Junior water right holders typically include municipalities as well as industrial, residential, and recreational water users. Today, I would like to begin my presentation with an update on the current drought status, then briefly discuss how the New Mexico Office of the State Engineer monitors the drought, discuss potential drought impacts for New Mexico, then provide you with some tips on how to maintain a beautiful landscape during a drought. And then I would like to navigate through some existing tools designed towards the wise use of water for a healthy, water conservative landscape. This map in this slide is from the US Drought Monitor, and it reflects the drought conditions from June 1st. The maps are updated every Tuesday and released on Thursdays. 100% of the state is in drought, with 74% classified as extreme and exceptional drought. For comparison purposes, at this time last year, 5% of the state was classified as extreme and exceptional drought. The recent rains have contributed to some drought improvements in the state, but as a whole, the whole state is in a deficit. This map illustrates the areas in the state with a one-class improvement from the May 27th drought improvements. So anything here in the shaded green has had some type of improvement. Using a timeline from the US Drought Monitor, we can compare the current drought to that of the past 20 years. We can see that D4, which is this it's dark maroon, but it almost looks brown color. We can see that D4 pops up in 2002, 2004, 2006, 2011, 2013, a little bit here in 2014, 2018, and 2021. Right here in the middle would be where 50% of the state is in G4. So we can see that in 2011, 2013, and 2020, the entire state has had more than 50% classified in D4. We've already achieved and surpassed the intensity of the 2011 drought. This slide from climate.gov is interesting. It illustrates how over time, temperatures in the United States have become much warmer. So you can see how different it was in 1930 as compared to 2020. This slide illustrates reservoir storage across the state. All reservoirs in New Mexico are well below average and way below last year's storage volume. The largest reservoir in the state is Navajo Reservoir, and it's at 60% capacity. The state's second largest reservoir, Elephant Butte, is only at 10% capacity. Here are some precipitation accumulations for selected climate stations around the state. This graph compares the average current accumulated precipitation in inches. Oh, I'm sorry, this is stream flow. I'm sorry. Here are some stream flow measurements for the past 4 months for selected USGS survey stations. The blue line here represents the discharge, and the yellow line is the daily median. As you can see, all the stream flows, all the blue lines are well below the medians. Now I'll go over precipitation accumulations for selected stations across New Mexico. So the green shaded area is the accumulation of precipitation, and this brown line here represents historical record data from 1991 to 2020. As you can see, 3 stations across the New Mexico, which is Rio Rancho, Farmington, and Alcalde, are well below the average. Well, the only one station that is doing better than the average is Roswell, which recently got a large amount of rain over the holiday weekend. This graph illustrates water level data for the Rio Grande Aquifer in Albuquerque. The water level started to rebound here in the late 2000s. I believe this is when Albuquerque-Bernalillo Water Utility Authority began utilizing their surface water rights, or as we refer to them in our office, their San Juan Chama water. I would also like to mention that Albuquerque-Bernalillo Water Utility Authority has reduced their gallons per capita per day water use from 162 in 2006 to 121 in 2019. While the population served by Albuquerque-Bernalillo Water Utility Authority has increased by approximately 100,000, the authority still has managed to reduce their 2005 water diversions by approximately 6,000 acre feet. I believe that Albuquerque-Bernalillo Water Utilities Authority's reduction in water use, along with the utilization of their San Juan Chama water, has helped the Rio Grande Aquifer recover. A similar story can be told for the Santa Fe Aquifer. The city of Santa Fe also utilizes San Juan Chama water, and they started resting their well field in the late 2000s, and you can see that the aquifer has recovered a little bit. A different scenario is occurring in the Ogallala Aquifer, which is in eastern New Mexico. This small portion of the Ogallala Aquifer is located in New Mexico. The aquifer continues to be impacted by groundwater pumping, which exceeds the amount of recharge. Water levels have declined over 300 feet in the past 60 years. How does the New Mexico Office of the State Engineer monitor drought? The Drought Task Force, which is chaired by the State Engineer, oversees the implementation of drought preparedness activities in the state of New Mexico. Additionally, the Drought Task Force plays a major role in intergovernmental drought preparedness, response coordination, agency collaboration, and media information releases. The Drought Task Force is the singular official channel to the governor for drought planning activities in the state. The governor calls upon the Drought Task Force to provide drought updates and recommendations, and is the final authority in declaring drought preparedness activities. The governor typically issues emergency drought declarations in the form of an executive order. There has been 6 executive orders from governors over the last 20 years addressing a range of drought-related issues. The Drought Task Force receives updates on the drought from the Drought Monitoring Work Group, which is chaired by the state climatologist. The Drought Monitoring Work Group meets monthly and includes climate, natural, and water resource professionals from state and federal agencies. Myself and other Water Use and Conservation Bureau staff are part of the Drought Monitoring Work Group. The Drought Monitoring Work Group is responsible for monitoring climate, hydrologic, and other pertinent data to analyze the current drought conditions in New Mexico. The New Mexico Drought Monitoring Work Group also makes drought recommendations to the Drought Task Force on potential drought executive orders. The work group utilizes the U.S. Drought Monitor to monitor the drought. The Drought Monitor has 5 drought categories, which are listed right here. D0, which is the yellow, is abnormally dry. D1, moderate drought. D2, severe drought. D3, extreme drought. And D4, exceptional drought. The drought impacts listed in this slide were developed by the National Drought Mitigation Center. I added the yellow-red check marks to the drought impacts occurring in New Mexico at this time. As you can see from the red check marks, agriculture production suffers in times of drought. According to the May 30th New Mexico Crop Progress Report, 61% of the state's pastures and rangelands are in very poor condition compared to the 38% from last year. Because of the loss of pasture, ranchers are starting to haul water and provide supplemental feed to their livestock. And in some cases, they're starting to sell off their herds. This is currently occurring in Colfax, San Juan, Grant, and Luna County. Some irrigation districts have also reported that allotments will be reduced and are planning on having a short season. Fire hazards are also considered a drought impact. Right now in the state, there are over 9 fires burning in New Mexico. 5 of those fires are 1,000+ acres in size. 2 of them are located in the Gila, 1 in the Sacramento Mountains, 1 in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, and 1 is in southeastern New Mexico. I didn't have time to look up additional fire information like burn bans. That's why I didn't include those check marks here on this list. But I know that there are some, but I didn't want to include the check mark without having done the research. The drought conditions in New Mexico are predicted to persist through most of the state. Water is a precious resource, especially in New Mexico's semi-arid dry climate. As I mentioned earlier, the majority of the state is not getting enough precipitation to help with the intensity of the drought. Therefore, soil moisture is depleted and our landscapes are dependent on our local water resources. So yes, New Mexico's current drought status is pretty gloomy, but we should all remain hopeful that the drought will continue to improve. And in the meantime, there are things that we can all do to help save water and still maintain a beautiful, healthy landscape. So now we can discuss some landscaping tips. Check with your local water provider for any water restrictions. Follow any time of day watering schedules or etc. that they post or notify you with. Most water providers at this time are allowing hand watering. During times of drought and water restrictions, trees should be given priority over other landscape plants. Why? Because trees are long-lived investments. If a tree dies, they're not easily replaced and removal can be costly and difficult. Remember, during a drought, the goal of irrigation is to sustain the tree, not to water for maximum growth. Conduct bi-weekly inspections of the irrigation system during the growing season to ensure that there are no leaks and that water is going to the correct places. Be sure to clean or replace drip emitters or sprinkle nozzles if needed. Make sure that you replace emitters and sprinkler heads with like-for-like sprinkler heads and emitters to ensure that they have the same flow and precipitation rates. Follow seasonal watering guidelines or adjust your irrigation timer according to the season. The frequency of watering will change by season. Typically, one waters more frequently during the summer and less in the spring and fall and winter months. Weather-based irrigation controllers are a type of smart irrigation control technology, and they use local water data to determine when and how much water to apply to your landscape. WaterSense labeled irrigation controllers can save water, time, and money when compared to other standard models. The best time to water during warm months is in the early morning, about 1 to 3 hours before the sun rises. Should be practiced it for anyone using sprinklers, just because the roots will get more water and there'll be less evaporation because of the sun and any wind that may be occurring. Water established plants deeply and more frequently, and less frequently to promote deep watering, which improves drought resistance and established plants by promoting deeper and more extensive root systems. This is different for newly installed plants. They just need the opposite. They need light, frequent applications. I thought it would be interesting to go over a few signs of under and overwatering. Let's just first go over some underwatering, just so that, since we're talking about deep watering. The first sign of underwatering is that old leaves turn yellow or brown and then they begin to drop. The second sign is leaves are dull, they wilt, or they start drooping. Leaves can also curl, and stems or branches die back. Some signs of overwatering would be that the leaves turn light, a lighter shade of green or yellow. The young shoots are wilted, growth is excessive, and algae and or mushrooms will start to grow around the plant. Mulch reduces evaporation by covering the soil and keeping the temperature cooler. Placing organic mulch such as wood chips or compost over your plant root zones will help retain moisture in the soil longer. Keep mulches 2 to 4 inches from plant stems. Horticulture shade cloths provide extra shade to plants and will help retain moisture in the soil and protect the plants from dehydrating because of the wind. 30% shade cloth allows 70% of sunlight to pass through. Anything heavier will deprive your plants of the sunlight. A shade cloth that's 10% density is perfect for sun-loving plants. A 30% shade cloth can be used for more sun-sensitive plants. For more information on shade cloths, you can refer to the resource list that will be posted on the website later after the presentation. Do not water when it's windy or rainy for obvious reasons. I don't think I need to explain that much further. A turf grass lawn left on water will naturally go dormant for the season or turn brown, and it may turn green again when rainfall or irrigation begins. I would like to note that reseeding or resodding your lawn may be necessary, but a lawn can often be reestablished within a single season. Avoid maintenance practices that stimulate plant growth, such as pruning, cutting lawns too short, and frequent or heavy fertilization. While fertilizers promote plant growth, they also increase water consumption. Applying the minimum amount of fertilizer when needed. We should make sure to pull weeds every week so that they don't take water away from our plants. Rake your garden, don't use a blower because it will dry out the soil. What is gray water? Gray water is water from your laundry, your bathtubs and showers, and your bath sinks. Gray water, for the most part, is an excellent source of water to irrigate your residential landscape and compost pile. I would note that it's not recommended that gray water be used for vegetable gardens, especially root vegetables. To help preserve water, the New Mexico Office of the State Engineer developed tools designed towards the wise use of water for a healthy, conservative landscape. I will discuss some of the main components of the New Mexico's Enchanted guidebook, and then I want to move on and navigate through some existing tools, which is the plant list and the landscape irrigation smart controller, which are located on our website. And then I would like to end the presentation by having a discussion on the plant app and rainwater harvesting. New Mexico's climate varies New Mexico's semi-arid climate and low average rainfall make it an ideal place to practice xeriscaping. Reducing your outdoor water is one of the most effective ways to conserve water. This slide illustrates the sections of the Xeriscape guidebook that I would like to discuss. New Mexico's semi-arid climate and low average rainfall vary greatly from north to south and from high to low elevations. The specific climate characteristics of your area will directly affect the plants that will grow and thrive. New Mexico has 3 climate areas for selecting plants. We have climate area 1, which is the green shaded area, which is the North Mountains. We have climate area 2, the central, which is the orange shaded area. And then we have climate 3, which is the purple shaded area. Several factors influence the local climate conditions this includes your latitude, elevation, terrain, exposure, and precipitation. There's no foolproof way to completely account for these variations, but this map can serve as a guide to determine the appropriate plants and trees for your location. I would like to point out that on this map, the Rio Rancho area falls in climate area 2. It's probably right around this area here. A beautiful xeriscape starts with a good design. The physical characteristics of the site should be considered, and so should your needs and your aesthetic preferences. Ask yourself, what is the primary goal for your landscape? Is it water conservation? Is it low maintenance? Is it a friendly habitat? This slide illustrates different types of landscapes that will help maximize your water savings. The left-hand picture here is a low to moderate landscape. The middle picture illustrates a low water use landscape. And the right-hand picture is a very low water use landscape. But it's important to water efficiently when irrigating. A key to creating successful xeriscape is to plan for different areas of landscape use. Plants should be put into specific zones based on the functions you want your yard to serve and the water needs for the plants that you select. You can create a water efficient landscape that is both beautiful and functional. There are 3 xeriscape zones. Zone 1 is the arid zone, where the most drought tolerant vegetation should be planted. You can choose native plants that rarely require supplemental watering. Zone 2 is the transition zone. It's used to blend in lush areas and more arid parts of the landscape. These plants need infrequent supplemental watering, usually once or twice a week. And then zone 3 is what we call the mini oasis. This area is closest to your home and includes the highest water use plants, which includes a lawn area if you have that. The zone is also included in the shady north and east sides of your home. And it's usually the coolest part of the site. To water your landscape efficiently, your irrigation system must be working properly. Even the best designed irrigation systems must be maintained to retain optimum efficiency. At least twice a year, do a thorough check of all the parts of your irrigation system. The checklist on this slide can be used as a guide for routine maintenance. I just wanted to note that this checklist is also located, it can also be found on page 21 of our Xeriscape guidebook. As I mentioned earlier in the landscaping tips, I also recommend that you conduct routine inspections of your irrigation system just to make sure that broken sprinkler heads, leaks, clogged drip emitters, and lines are taken care of once you make repairs immediately, as opposed to this one, which is just a checklist for your fall, spring, and summer months. The last section of the Xeriscape guidebook that I wanted to briefly discuss is the plant list. The Xeriscape guidebook has a small sample of plant lists that were compiled from our bigger New Mexico plant list, which we're going to go over in just a few minutes. The plant list in this guidebook is arranged by climate area. So the tabs are going to be color-coded to match the climate area of the map. For this example, I just chose climate area 1, which is in the northern mountains, and it's shaded green. The other ones, of course, will be orange and purple. So it'll be easy for you to navigate and just go to your climate area, and then you can just focus on the plants that you want to look at. The plant list is also color-coded by the category plant type. So for this example, I just happened to choose perennials, which is all the pink shaded area. And then desert accents happen to be on the bottom, which are the blue shaded area. There's other pertinent data that's listed on the plant list, such as the height and width of your plant right here. So let you know how big your plant will grow. There also lets you know if the water use, whether it's low, medium, or high, sun exposure, soil type, and bloom period. So the New Mexico plant list is an expert recommended list of low water use native and adapted plants that thrive in New Mexico's climate. I will now navigate through the plant list and show you how easy it is to search for plants. Okay, here we go. I was having problems because I had my pointer. Well, we can build a list of our favorite plants to use, and then you can take that list to your nursery, and then you can also have a discussion with your landscaper. So we can just briefly go over some of the main tabs on the plant list. The home always takes you back home. You can browse, you can search, and then here would be where, if we decided to create a list to share with our landscaper or take to the nursery, this is where we would obtain our list. There's 2 ways to search the plant list. One is to browse. I would recommend browsing if you know the name of the plant that you're looking for. So you just click on the browse, and then you can search by the Latin name or the common name. I like to use the common name because I don't honestly know the Latin name for most of them. So you just make sure that that's highlighted. And then I know that I have seen a particular tree that I liked. So I'm going to search for that tree. And the tree that I'm interested in is, it's called a green ash tree. So these are sorted in alphabetical order. So we can just scroll down, and I think when you click twice, there we go. Now it's in alphabetical order. I'm going to scroll down till I see green ash, and as you can see, I had already looked at it before. So you click on green ash, and you'll get a nice picture of what the tree looks like, and then you'll get a description of the size of the tree, how big it's going to grow, the flower color. Since this tree doesn't really have a flower, it's just going to say variable, and then the bloom season in the spring. There'll also be different notes that are helpful for some of them. They'll tell you what kind of soil this particular tree likes and sun. And then it's going to, here on the bottom, it's going to tell you what area, what climate area of the state it prefers. And it says the northern mountains. So this particular tree I can grow in my area because I live in northern New Mexico. So I want to add this to my list. So once that's done, we can close this because it's just a pop-up window, and then we're going to be right back to our search list. And then we can continue searching for different trees or different plants. Another tree that I really like is the Rocky Mountain maple. So I'm going to look for that tree, and here it is, and we'll click on it. And then of course you get the same information, the height, and I can see that in the fall, it's gonna have a yellow color. So I'm gonna add this to my list. And then I'm gonna close the pop-up window. And now I think that I just wanna search for different plants for my flower bed garden because I don't know any specific names. So we'll learn how to use the search menu. So we just click on search. And the first thing that you wanna do when you're completing a search is enter your climate area. So like I mentioned earlier, I live in the Northern Mountains, so I'm going to select that. And I'm today interested in flowers for my flower bed. So I'm interested in perennials. I'm interested in annuals, and I want some ground covers. And then the next thing we can select is if there's a particular flower color that I'm interested in, and I actually want to see all colors. So I'm just going to select variable colors, or you can also click all flower colors. Then you can also select the exposure, whether or not you want them to be in the full sun, in the shade. For me, it doesn't matter because where my flower bed is, any of these would work. You can select the bloom season. To me, doesn't really matter. So I'm just gonna let it search all the bloom seasons. You can also select your water requirement. I'm interested in plants that are low water use and medium. And then this is just here for your trees. We're not literally looking at trees, so I'm going to leave that blank. For me, size and height doesn't matter, so I'm just going to let it search all the different sizes. And then you can also search by the type of animals that you would like to attract. I'm okay attracting all of these animals, so I'm going to just select all animals to be attracted. And then you can also select soil types. There's a drop-down menu, and then you can pick the type of soil that is in your current landscape. Right now, I'm going to leave all soil types, but I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to choose prefer sandy soil because where I live is sandy. And then the next thing you do is just hit submit, and then you're going to get this list of plants that meet that criteria. If you're not familiar with the type of plant, you can click on here and there'll be a lot of information. And then there's also a picture. Just from these little pictures, I probably would be interested in this one with the aster because it's purple. So I click on the aster, and then it'll give me all this information for that particular plant, the size, the variability, the bloom season, and it grows in the Northern Mountains and the central area, and it prefers full sun. So I'm going to add this to my list because I want to take this to the nursery so that when I'm there, I don't forget what kind of plants I wanted. So when you're done and you're done searching for plants, you can just go to your list and review what your list looks like, and it's going to have everything that we selected. It's going to have my Rocky Mountain maple tree, my purple aster, and it's going to have my green ash tree. There's an easy print button here. You can just print that and take it down to the nursery, and then you have your list of trees or plants that you're interested in. Before we move on, I guess I could ask if anyone has a question regarding the plant list, or we could certainly visit this at the end of the presentation. I'll pause a moment just to see if anyone has a question on how to use the tool.
Julie, I don't see questions coming in.
Okay. Okay, well, let's move on to the irrigation calculator. So the irrigation calculator works like a smart controller by applying the right amount of water based on certain site conditions, such as evapotranspiration, soil type, plant type, microclimates to maintain a healthy growing conditions for your landscape. The smart controller uses 24 years of historical weather data to estimate the water needs of a plant on any given day of the year. The weather data is used to calculate average daily historic evaporation, also known or referred to as ET rates, using the Hargreaves-Money equation. The ET rates use a grass-based plant as a reference ET. After determining the amount of water to apply, the irrigation calculator determines the timing of the water application. The irrigation application rate, the soil type, and the size of the plants are used to determine how long each application cycle should run. All these factors are compiled into a personalized irrigation calendar or an irrigation schedule. The calendar will provide calculated watering times by zone in days of the week, run times, numbers of cycle. So let's navigate through the calculator and see how it works. Before we start putting information, I just wanted to show you some of the tabs, some of the menu items here. If at any time you need or would like additional information, all of these tabs you could click on and it'll explain what the information is that it's asking for. For instance, you could click on ear type and then it'll just tell you that the ear type is whether we're having a wet year, a dry year, or average. And then there's additional links for websites that help you determine that. So if you didn't know precipitation, you could go to this particular website and find more information on precipitation, or you could click on this link here, which would give you the most current drought status. So there's just a lot of good information and resources here on this left menu tab. So let's just jump into the calculator and see how it works. So the first thing you want to do is select your area. If you don't know your latitude and longitude, you can just click on the map in the area that you live in, and it will input those for you. So I live in northern New Mexico, so I'm just going to navigate really quickly to where I live, and I live in Ogallala. So you just click in the general area, and it self-populates your latitude and longitude. The next thing that you want to do to create your irrigation schedule is input your schedule. So I'm interested, I'm just going to start my irrigation season this weekend. So I'm going to select June 13th as my start date. And typically I stop irrigating in about mid-September. So I'm just going to choose September 13th as my end date. And here's the ear type that I was describing earlier, where there's a drop-down menu and you select whether you're having a dry year, an average year, or a wet precipitation year. As we all know, we're all having a dry year, so I'm going to select dry. I obtain my water from a water provider. At this time, we don't have any water restrictions, but if I did, you could just click on the drop down and pick whatever restrictions are in place for your particular system. And so since I have no restrictions, I'm going to select that. And then how many zones do you have in your landscape? The calculator you can put up to 4 different zones for your schedule. I have 2, so I'll select the 2, and then you just hit continue, and then you just have to populate the next items here. So to make sure that I remember what zone is what, my first zone is where I have all my trees planted. Oops, and I didn't spell that correct. So I'm gonna call my zone trees, and then the plant type, you can select whether it's trees, shrubs, ground cover, mixed, whether it's a turf. And all, like I said earlier, this is all trees, so I'm only going to select trees. My trees are all fruit trees, so they're medium to high water use. So I'm going to select high for my trees. The density factor for my trees, because they're all spaced out pretty far apart, I'm going to select a very low one. If for anyone not knowing what density factors are, all you have to do is click over here and the pop-up window will give you a good explanation of what the density factor is. We won't go over that because just for the sake of time. The next thing I want to do is select my microclimate. Are my are my trees planted near any structures, or are they near any pavement, whatnot? Mine are not. So my microclimate is pretty low because I live in over an acre. So I have enough room to really space out my trees. My soil type, I've done actually the mason jar test. So I know that my soil type is a loamy sand. If you don't know what your soil type is, again, click here on the left menu tab. There's a lot of information on how to determine your soil type. You can even there's instructions on how to do the mason jar test, or you can go to some of these other websites that actually already have that information for you. I have a drip system, so I'm going to select the drip system. The emitter rate for my trees is about 1 gallon per minute. And I have 3 emitters on my trees. And the plant size for my trees is large. And my drip efficiency is about 90%. So I can just hit continue. And then the next thing, since I chose 2 zones, I just want to rename this zone and populate the information for that. And this is where I have my plants, just my small flower bed. And I'm going to select ground cover because I don't have no trees or any shrubs in my flower bed. It's all ground cover. It's not a mixture or anything. My plant water demand is medium to low, so I'm going to leave medium there. My density factor is going to be a little bit higher because my plants are typically planted closer together. I'm going to say they're about 70% for my spacing. And my microclimate is going to be high because my flower bed is actually just planted along the side of my house. And again, my soil type was a loamy sand. And go back to my drip. For this, my emitter rate is going to be 1 gallon again. And the number of plants per emitter are, I usually put about 3 plants per emitter. And my plant sizes they're about medium, they're not very large. And then you just hit continue. And then your irrigation schedule will pop up. It gives you all the information that you input, your latitude, longitude, your start dates, the type of year. Here it tells me what zone for my trees. And then, like I said, density factor, microclimate. Here's my zone 2, which is my plants. And then you can just scroll down and it's going to give me my irrigation schedule starting on June 13th. And it's going to tell me how many minutes I should water my trees. On the 13th, I should go for 59 minutes for 1 cycle. And then my plants should be 35 minutes for 1 cycle. And then it also has me irrigating my plants on Wednesdays. So my trees are once a week, and it looks like my plants are twice a week. And you can just scroll down and you'll notice that the times do decrease as you go through, start getting into the cooler months. And it'll have my stop date as, it should have been September 13th, but I think it gave me 1 more for my plants. So that's how you use the irrigation calculator. I think it's a good time to pause for questions on the irrigation calculator. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, we're not hearing any questions. We're going to go back to my PowerPoint presentation, and we're going to discuss the free plant app for iPhones and iPads. The New Mexico Office of the State Engineer, Waters and Conservation Bureau, New Mexico State University Center for Landscape Water Conservation, and NMSU's New Mexico State University's Media Productions worked together to develop the free plant app for iPhones and iPads. The plant app is a handy way to find out information regarding landscaping plants. The app was developed utilizing information from the New Mexico plant list. It includes references for hundreds of plants to choose from when designing your low-use water use landscape. All plants in the app thrive on little or no supplemental water, and they typically provide. They can typically be used in your regional landscapes. So there's information on here. There'll be photos of the plants for a wide variety of trees, shrubs, perennials, annuals, cacti, turf grass, and ornamental grasses. Also, vine plants and ground covers. It's really similar to the New Mexico plant list, where users can search by the scientific name or the common name. And then you can also do the search by the category, which is your plant type, the region, your climate region, and whether or not you want full or sun exposure. Unfortunately, I don't have an iPhone, so I haven't been able to download this plant app. I wish that they made one for Android so that I could get this plant app. I have a friend who uses this plant app at the nursery, and she always likes just to determine the water use, the plant's water needs, as well as the climate area. So it's easy for her to determine right away at the nursery whether or not she'll be able to utilize that plant in her landscape. As part of our outreach program, I jumped too many slides, apologize. As part of our outreach program, the New Mexico Office of the State Engineer developed a water-wise guide to rainwater harvesting and the roof-reliant landscape brochure. Because New Mexico is an arid state with significant water challenges, there was a lot of interest in rainwater harvesting in cisterns. Rooftop rainwater harvesting, along with other outdoor rooftop watering, along with other outdoor water conservation, can reduce the demands on our municipal water supplies actually in our aquifers. The best source of water for our plants is rainwater because it's free of salts and other minerals that can be harmful to the roots. The water-wise guide to rainwater harvesting discusses how rainwater can be collected and goes over the elements of a rainwater harvesting system, while the roof-reliant landscaping brochure is more detailed, and it has step-by-step instructions on how to size a cistern. Rainwater harvesting can be as simple as capturing water in buckets or rain barrels, or it can also be as elaborate as installing a cistern system. The last thing that I wanted to mention is that Bernalillo County will be having a 3-part webinar series on rainwater harvesting. I'd encourage anyone who's wanting to learn more about rainwater harvesting to register for this webinar. With that, this concludes my presentation.